So let's just start off with the basic what colon cancer is and what the symptoms might be.
Yeah, so the colon is the last 5 feet of your intestine. Its main job is to reclaim all the water that's used by your small intestine. So your small intestine adds a lot of water into it to help it digest and absorb your food. So all this liquid now comes to the colon, and the colon needs to get back all that water so you can recycle and use it again. Once the water is removed, then you're left with solid stool, which is made up of fiber and also stuff that we can't absorb. And so now you can store that, and then when it's convenient, you can go do a number two or whatever it is that you have to do. And the colon is a soft tube, right? So basically, for most people, they don't feel anything when the colon cancer is
Mm.
growing. Now, if the cancer happens to block the tube, then you would get very bad constipation. If it happens to squish the tube so it's a small hole, then you would get these pencil thin stools. If the cancer bleeds, then there could be blood in the stool that you see. If the cancer is lower down, it would be red blood. If it's higher up, the blood turns black. And if it's a small leak, you won't see any blood, but then you'll just feel drained out because you're bleeding out. And so therefore you would feel very tired. And if the cancer was spreading all over the place or it was growing very fast, then it would use up your resources and then you would start to lose weight. So these were the things that we were taught in medical school to look out for, which meant that we were finding colon cancer in the later stages of the
Yeah.
disease, right? So nowadays we don't wait for those symptoms. We go ahead and we go looking for the colon cancer.
All right. I happen to be somebody who's on one of those every 3 year lists because
Yes.
I have colon cancer in my family.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's the way you go looking for it now.
Yeah, yeah. So if you have symptoms, we go straight ahead and get the fancy test done. But for people without symptoms, then we do the simple test first. So let's say we take a normal person's risk, right? So the simple test would be a stool test, and we're
Yeah.
looking for small amounts of blood in there that you can't see with your eyes. But if the cancer is not leaking any blood, then that test would not be able to find anything. The newer tests actually look for DNA from cancer cells, either in your stool or within your blood. And those are tests are better, but they're not covered right now. So that is out of pocket. You have to pay. And the colon cancer test is the colonoscopy, which is the tube with the camera that you go inside. And I think you've had that before. And so therefore we can look for cancers and polyps. Now, usually a polyp grows first, and then over years it becomes cancerous, some of them. And so therefore during the
Mm.
colonoscopy, they can use tools to remove those polyps. And this would reset the cancer clock back to zero again, so that you have to grow a new polyp from scratch before it can turn into colon cancer. And then finally, the CT colonoscopy. The CT scan takes pictures in slices of your belly, kind of like bread slices,
Mhm.
and the computer can stack all these slices back together again, and you get a virtual tour of your colon, and you can see if there's any polyps or cancers that need to be taken out.
All right. Now we are seeing this in younger people with colon cancer. Is it because they're not getting tested?
I think that's the first thing, right? Just screen more people. But think about it. Colon cancer typically was in people in their 60s. So it made sense to do screening at age 50. So
Yeah.
10 years before, you can pick off the polyps before they turn cancerous. But now we're seeing people 40 and 30-year-olds getting colon cancer. Now, it'd be a lot of people to screen, over the age of 30. That's a lot of people to screen. And we know certain people are at higher risk of colon cancer. For example, people with family history of colon cancer, we screened them 10 years before the youngest relative got cancer. So let's say a relative got cancer at age 40, then we would screen you at age 30. Now, people who make a lot of polyps, we would get them checked earlier
Mm.
and screen them more often. People with colitis, which is inflammation of the colon, their cells die quicker, so they make more copies of the cells, so therefore higher risk of cancer. So they get scoped earlier. But these young folks that we're talking about didn't have any of these conditions. So nothing would have flagged them as being higher risk than normal. And that's what's concerning doctors is they're not special. There's nothing special about them, and yet they're getting colon cancer.
And so, do we know anything about the reason we're seeing this more in young people then?
So nothing for 100%, but scientists are looking at what younger people are exposed to more these days compared to their parents or grandparents. And one thing that stands out is more processed foods. So lots of new chemicals have been added in, lots of things have been taken out. For example, fiber has been removed. That's how we get white bread. And, we drink orange juice instead of eating the orange. So that's a lot less
Mm.
fiber. Now, you and I can't use fiber, but our bacteria in our microbiome use fiber as their fuel. We have over 1,000 different types of bacteria that help us process food and break down chemicals for us. So if they don't have any fuel, they can't work. And so now we have unprocessed chemicals that could cause damage to our cells and therefore lead them towards cancer. Also, less fiber means fewer bowel movements. So therefore, the chemicals will stay within us for longer. And researchers actually compared the bowel transit time for people with low fiber in New York City to people with high fiber in rural Africa. And for the rural Africans, the time from the mouth to the other end was just a day and a half. In New York City, it was double that. It was 3 days. So
Mm.
longer chemical exposure. And that might explain why there's more colon cancer in New York City versus rural Africa. Another area of research is microplastics. So young people have been exposed to plastic pretty much since birth. And so these tiny bits of plastic could directly injure the lining of the colon, or they can break down the protective layers. And now it allows the bad bacteria to come in and cause inflammation and war. And some of these bad bacteria could grow on the plastic and then push away the good bacteria, get them out of the neighborhood. And chemicals like BPA, we know can leach out of
Hmm.
plastic, and that can cause problems as well. So microplastic is another potential cause of these cancers in these younger folks.
All right. Do I dare ask how one measures bowel transit time?
I'll tell you that later. But
Huh? Yeah, we don't need to put that on the air, I guess.
yeah, that's right.
So how do you reduce the risk of all of this?
Well, just don't ignore symptoms, right? If you have stomach pains or
Yeah.
diarrhea or blood or anything, get it checked out. And as doctors, we should not be brushing things off, just because they're young, right? So
Yeah.
age no longer matters in colon cancer. And if you have a family history of colon cancer or any of those conditions that speed up cancer, then do the screening earlier. And, we should all choose foods and containers more carefully, right? So less processed food, the more it looks like something you see in nature, the better. And glass containers is better. Use metal
Mm.
utensils instead of plastic. No heating up anything in plastic containers. And wash your hands before you eat, because that gets rid of the microplastic and chemicals on your hands. And eat more natural fibers so that way your microbiome will have lots of fuel. And eat a variety of foods so that you can keep all the different types of bacteria in your microbiome. And so that way we can process many things that we're eating inside. So variety would be a good
Okay.
thing. So for your T-shirt for this week, okay, now you're asking the right question. So people are wondering, how do you measure the bowel transit time? And so it'll be a picture of the poop emoji, and it'll just say, to check your bowel transit time, just eat corn, and that's it. It'll just be straightforward. There you go. We've now
I'm
brought
so sorry
something
I
different for
asked.
corn.
I'm really
But you
sorry I
did. You're
asked. Yeah,
you're
I
you're
did.
asking the
Yeah.
question on behalf of all our listeners, so
Sure.
that's good.
Dr. Lynn, thank you.
Take care, Stephen.
We'll talk again. That is our house doctor, Peter Lynn.